We live in a world where regular people can buy and use state-of-the-art software to record, edit, and mix their music. And yet some of them like to eschew Pro Tools and plugins in favor of devices that seem primitive by comparison. But that doesn't mean we aren't aware of the sacrifices we make. In fact, this week's recording project reminded me again and again of the things that I cannot do because I'm using a DAWless device. And yet, in a strange way, each of those moments of frustration has reminded me of one of the key reasons why I continue to use DAWless devices and plan to do so for the foreseeable future. But before I can tell you about that reason and explain the title of this video, I want to talk for a moment about what the word DAWless really means. I do most of my recording with digital devices made by Tascam, like the DP006 or more recently their Model 12. In comments to some recent videos, I have been informed that those are not in fact DAWless devices because inside the plastic there is software, and that software is technically a DAW. And look, I get it from like a design or engineering perspective and the reality of what's inside that device. I guess it's not a DAWless device. But I think from the perspective of a user, somebody who's trying to use these devices to make music, comparing them in this way to a modern, fully featured DAW just doesn't make any sense. Because there are so many things that you can do with almost every modern DAW that you cannot do with a device like the Model 12. You can't like zoom in and edit a waveform. You can't drag and drop pieces of audio. You can't copy and paste. You can't automate things. And of course, you can't add seemingly infinite plugins or effects to every single track in your mix. But those types of features are standard in basically every DAW that I have ever used, including GarageBand, which is free on an Apple device. And these features were all in the version of GarageBand that I used when I got my first Apple device in 2011. And that kind of power and precision and control, it's not available to you using these digital Porta-Studio-like devices. There might be DAWs inside of them, but the way that they are designed makes those types of features virtually inaccessible. And that practical difference is what matters the most to me when I choose to refer to devices like the Model 12 as a DAWless device. Here's a simple way to think about it. If I made a video in which I told young, aspiring musicians that the Model 12 was just like Pro Tools, I would get hazed in the comments because that position is ridiculous. But if I made a video in which I said the Model 12 is just like an old 424 cassette Porta-Studio, I mean, people would flag obvious differences, but I don't think I'd get burned to the ground. And there's evidence for that because there are really credible people like Pete Thorne who have made videos making that exact claim. So if you're gonna put a device like the Model 12 in one bucket or the other, don't call it a DAW. It's a DAWless device. I'm ranting about this because this week's recording has reminded me of all the things that would have been easier if I was using a DAW. There's so many examples I could point to, but I'm gonna focus on the very first thing that I did in this recording project. I built the whole song around a drum pattern that I made in an app on my iPad. And if I was using a DAW, I could have exported the parts of that pattern, little like, 2 or 3 second snippets, and then just like put them in the grid and copied and pasted and built the whole thing into a song and then done further recording. And don't worry, the things that I did in that original build, they're not permanent. If they weren't perfect, if they weren't exactly what I wanted, I could go back at any time and change them, even totally replace them. And to do so would be easy. But that is not the case in the Model 12. That's not even really an option. So instead, I had to record the patterns in a particular order. That meant I had to sit with my iPad and perform the parts. There's a part of you still there, so black the salt gets in your head. Yes, I'm just pressing little buttons, but I still have to approach that process with a view of what is the song actually like? Where am I in the structure of the song? And if I make mistakes, like I have to go back and fix those mistakes, maybe even start over. And I did make mistakes. I had a number of false starts, and then after I made it all the way through the song and thought I was done, moved on to recording another instrument, right in the middle of a take, I realized I had left out like half of the bridge, so I had to go back and do it again. To some of you, that process will sound painful and easily avoidable. If this guy would just use a DAW. And it was kind of painful, but it's the kind of tolerable pain and frustration that feels to me like a normal part of making music, of recording. And in fact, that is exactly what it did feel like, making music, even though I was holding an iPad and just like triggering these little patterns because of the focus that I had to have on the larger song, because of the possibility that I would make mistakes, and as a result, the amount of intensity that I had to bring to my performance of those parts. It did, in fact, feel like a performance. And that's what I really enjoy about recording. I like planning parts, practicing the parts, making little adjustments, then actually sitting down, hitting record, and feeling the pressure to execute those parts. Is there frustration when you fail? Yes, but there's also immense satisfaction when you succeed. And throughout that process, I have a constant sense of focus and flow, and even, not joy, but something like satisfaction. And those feelings, one after another over many hours of work, are what propel me through the hours of work, and then beyond that to the next project, to the next song. And it's all made possible by using these DAWless devices. In fact, I think they're pretty much designed for you to adopt that exact approach. But with a DAW, it's a completely different paradigm. I mean, of course, you can use Pro Tools exactly the way that I'm describing, but it's not really designed to be used that way. It's designed to facilitate another approach involving many more tasks, like precision editing, automation. I made the list earlier. In 2024, the intended use of a DAW is to do some of the things that I do with a DAWless device, and then a bunch of other things. And to me, those steps, those functions don't feel like making music. They feel like computer work, the kind of work that I do here in my home office all the time. I spend most of my days sitting at a computer, staring at a screen, typing on a keyboard, moving a mouse, click and drag, copy and paste. These things are familiar to me, too familiar from all of the stuff I do on computers all the time. And because they're so familiar, they don't feel special. They don't feel like they have a special relationship with making music. But every time I pick up a guitar or hold an SM57, I feel like this is a music thing. And that's just not the case when I'm clicking a mouse or executing a key command. I don't feel like I'm making music. I feel like I'm making a PowerPoint. And that's not the way that I want to feel when I'm working on a song. And I don't want the process of working on a song to be bloated with steps that do feel like PowerPoint work. DAWless devices help create an environment where I get to focus, not exclusively, but mostly on the things that I actually enjoy doing and that feel like making music. And are there downsides to my approach? Of course. Mistakes, inefficiency, lost time, pitch problems. I could not get my bass to stay in tune this week. And I won't even talk about all the creative tools that you get because you're using a DAW, through the DAW and the other software that you can integrate into that DAW. That kind of stuff is just inaccessible to me. Those are real trade-offs, and sometimes I wonder if I would be making different music or having a different relationship with music if I was able to use some of those creative tools, but I'm not going to sit here with regret. I have a certain relationship with making music. I associate making music with certain kinds of tasks. I want to fill as much of my recording time as I can with those tasks, and I'm willing to accept the trade-offs. So I'm generally happy where I am, even if that means I have to spend some amount of time hunched over an iPad, just like clicking icons. But the truth is, as simple as that was, I was invested in the process because it felt like I was making music. And when I finally got the take, I felt the same sense of pride that I feel when I capture a take of any instrument. And I felt each of those feelings again as I recorded electric guitar. More electric guitar. Bass. Slidey bass. 2 rounds of bathtub snaps. Lots and lots of vocals. Wave after wave. And then even more electric guitar. And then mixing. I mean, mixing this thing was a beast. Very frustrating, mostly because of all those vocals, but also very satisfying. And then at the end, I had a mix. I had a song, and I felt happy about that. But I also had all this accrued happiness from the steps that I had taken along the way. And I had spent actually very little time doing the things that I don't like to do. And I think that balance of like and dislike is something that I'm able to achieve because those are the options that the Model 12 and other DAWless devices give me. And for that reason and others, I will continue to use those DAWless devices, even though the DAWs exist and might seem like the obvious choice to many other people. Let me know what you think about all that in the comments. But before you do that, let me just say thank you. I always appreciate your time watching these videos, and I hope you enjoy this week's offering. It's a song that I wrote back in May 2023 when I was writing a song a day. It's actually the third song that I've recorded in full from that writing project. It's a song called Sand. If you're interested in hearing the origins of that song, you can see them in it's a video somewhere up there. It's evolved somewhat since then, and I'm really happy with where it is today. So stay tuned for that. And as always, thank you for your time. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you around. Still smell the sunscreen on your skin. Still hear you daring to get in. Still see you laugh behind the tower when I'm blue. You buried my legs in the sand, humming to catch you if I can. But if I did, what then? Sundown summons the tide again. Time washed away whatever we made. I remember you waving like I was sand, crushed next to your ocean, waving like I was sand. If we touched, I would be floating, waving, but you still see me as land. There's a part of you still there, like the salt sticks in your hair, till every shadow in the shallows looks like you, holding my breath, until there's nothing left. Just when I think you're gone, there's jetsam drifting up from the depths, up from the depths. Sunglasses, eyelashes, Skittles and sweat. I remember you waving like I was sand, crushed next to your ocean, waving like I was sand. If we touched, I would be floating, waving, but you still see me as land. Waving like I was sand. If we touch,